Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to this free PowerPoint design course on the Scrolling Parallax Effect. If you ask yourself, what is a parallax effect? It's what you experience right here. A visual effect that creates the impression of depth by having different layers, such as the content layer and the background layer that move at different paces. For this course, I decided to focus on two types of the scrolling parallax effect, because realistically these two are the only parallax effects that you can easily apply to almost any slide in your own presentations without too much effort but with a tremendous result. The first effect is the Lazy Scroll Parallax, which means both the content and the background are moving up, but the background moves at a slower pace, just like you see here with one single background image. That's already amazing, right? But I will also show you how to implement this effect with two separate backgrounds, which is the more convenient way. And we will create this effect with a vertical scroll and a horizontal scroll. And the most important part, I'm going to teach you my hands-on approach on how to apply this technique to a set of more than two slides which are already pre-built. So you learn how you can set up your own slides first and then apply the parallax effect in a clean way afterwards with only a few simple steps. The second effect is the Sticky Scroll Parallax, and with this effect the backgrounds of both slides remain stuck at their position, but you have that beautiful background revealing that is synchronized with the slide content scrolling up and down. For this effect again, I show you the basic technique for the vertical scroll and the horizontal scroll. And then just like for the other effect, I teach you the best approach for applying this effect to multiple slides in a row that you can build as normal slides beforehand. I cannot wait to get started, so let's get right into it and start with the Lazy Scroll Parallax effect. The first thing I recommend to do is to make sure that you always know where the borders of the slide area are, because for the parallax effect we're going to use that area outside of the slide area and want to make sure that we are always aware which part will be visible in presentation mode. For that you can use the so-called guidelines, add them by right-clicking anywhere, and then under Grid and Guides you can add vertical or horizontal guidelines. Once they are added, click on them and hold the mouse key pressed to move them around. What makes them so useful is the fact that these guidelines are always visible and on top of any object on your slide, but only in editing mode. Once we have highlighted these borders with the guidelines, we are ready to insert the background image for the vertical Lazy Scroll Parallax effect with one single background. I am using the Pexels add-in, which gives you direct access to a huge database of free high-quality images from within PowerPoint. And if you want to know more about that, I got one of my recent videos about this and other useful PowerPoint add-ins linked for you. In Pexels, we search for nature and insert this beautiful image of a mountain. Let's format it and make it a bit darker. For the Lazy Scroll Parallax effect with one single background, you have to increase the size of the image so that it goes beyond the vertical borders, because we need to move it up and down and that requires some flexibility. Thanks to the guidelines, we know exactly by how much we cross the slide area borders. And now to remove these side parts here, we can go to the Picture Format tab and click on Crop to open the crop editing mode. Let's crop the image to perfectly fit the side borders and do a quick check in presentation mode if the image still fills the whole slide area. Perfect. Now it's time to insert some slide content in the form of multiple text fields. I installed the Open Sans font family, which I can really recommend, and with that font in place we can quickly set up a beautiful title and subtitle. Of course, this is just an example and you can put in here whatever content you like. But one thing you should always do once you have set up your content is grouping it together for multiple good reasons. First, it allows you to better align the content And then we can apply a shadowing effect to the whole content at once by right-clicking on it and clicking on Format Shape. Then in there, under the text options, we can now add a shadow to this text and play around with the blur and the transparency parameter to make the content better stand out from the background. The last thing to do on this slide is we're gonna create a second text group by duplicating, moving, and adjusting the text objects. We have to place the second text group below the slide area, just like the overlapping part of the image. Now, the key for a clean parallax effect is using the Morph Transition feature that is available in PowerPoint 2019 and PowerPoint 365. Morph allows you to duplicate this first slide, then rearrange the elements on the duplicated slide, and then by applying the Morph Transition, recognize these elements on both slides and make them move to their new position. On the duplicated slide, we want to move these two text groups upwards together so that the distance between them stays the same and that the lower text group takes the place of the currently visible text group. What we can do to mark that position is simply adding another guideline and place it right on top of the first text group. Then we select both and press the arrow keys on the keyboard to move them up to the new position. These two text groups are the front layer of our parallax effect, which means from a visual perspective, this layer is the layer that is the closest to the audience and thus moves the fastest. The background layer, on the other hand, moves up as well, but not as fast, so the new position of the background image will only be a bit higher than the original position. And now that everything is arranged correctly, we apply the Morph Transition to the second slide, and there we have the beautiful Lazy Scroll Parallax effect with one single background. You can play around with the exact positions in order to adjust the pace at which the layers are moving, but always make sure that the background layer is moving slower than the content layer. Let's take a look at the final result in presentation mode, and you see we can go back and forth between the two slides and the Lazy Scroll Parallax is always applied beautifully. Building a Lazy Scroll Parallax effect with one single background definitely looks nice, but a more realistic scenario for your own presentations is that you have multiple slides with different background that you set up first without really thinking about the parallax effect and then apply the effect afterwards. So let's implement the Lazy Vertical Scroll Parallax for two separate slides. For that, we're gonna reuse the first slide. Just crop the image to perfectly cover the slide area. And then to build the second slide, we're gonna reuse the content elements. Just change the text and add a nice shape for the background. Give it a blue fill. Of course, we need the background to be behind the text. And then as the last step, let's add a nice image to the background. Now, here's one important thing you always have to keep in mind when building your slides separately at first. You always have to use a movable shape or image as your background and cannot make use of the slide area background. Okay, here we have a beautiful city image. We're gonna crop it to make it fit the shape background and make it transparent so that it slightly overlays the blue background shape. And to make them one object, we finally group both together. Now we have both our slides set up separately in a way that we could also set them up if we wouldn't apply the parallax effect. And now I'm gonna show you which steps you need to take to add the vertical Lazy Scroll Parallax effect to these two slides. As the first step, I recommend to add a slight upper shadow to the background of the second slide, because this background shape will flow over the background of the first slide at a faster pace, and that shadow will create an enhanced impression of depth. Just play around with the blur and transparency parameters to achieve the best result. As the second step, copy the background shape and the content group of the second slide over to the first slide and place it right below the visible slide area. You don't want to have that second slide visible in presentation mode, so do a quick check and adjust the position if necessary. As the third step, we then copy over the background and content of the first slide to the second slide, and at first we place both right on top of the second slide, but we only do that to make the text element be positioned at the perfect distance. Let's send both to the back. And now what we want to do is moving the background of the first slide down until only one half is visible. That's a really crucial step because it will create the illusion of the second slide flowing over the lazy first slide at a faster pace. With the morph transition applied, this looks just like this. As an additional note, what you can do to make the text content of the second slide move independently from its background, go to the first slide and move the text group to an even lower position. And then when you reapply the morph transition to the second slide, you'll see the text of the second moves a bit faster than its background. Beautiful. Let's take a look at the final result of the Lazy Scroll Parallax effect with two separate slides. For the horizontal version of the Lazy Scroll Parallax effect, the approach is pretty similar. We start by building two separate sample slides. First, we insert another beautiful background picture from Pexels, decrease the brightness, which is something I recommend to do if you work with white text in the front layer like I do here. Then let's copy over the text elements from the previous slides, but for the horizontal parallax effect, I recommend to align them to the side which equals the direction of the parallax effect that you want to apply. In our case, that's the left side. That will just make it look more harmonious in the end. After we have arranged everything, let's slightly adjust the text shadow to optimize it for this background. And that's already the setup for the first slide. For the second slide, we're gonna reuse the text group at this lower left aligned position and change the text. And for the background, we insert a different beautiful image like this. Make it fit the slide area. Send it to the back and decrease the brightness to make the text stand out. Perfect. Now we will go through the same steps that I already introduced for the vertical Lazy Scroll Parallax effect. As the first step, we add a shadow to the background picture. This time we place the shadow on the left side because this is the direction this image will move. Then we copy over both elements to the first slide and place them right next to it on the right side. And to add an additional layer of depth, we move the text group of the second slide even more to the right so that it will move at a faster pace than its background. After that, we copy over the elements of the first slide to the second slide, place them on the left side to ensure the perfect distance of the text group, send both elements to the back, and then we move the background image to the right until only half of it is visible. That's the whole setup, and now when we apply the morph transition, we get that beautiful horizontal lazy scroll parallax effect. Let's move this text group even more to the right to increase its pace. And that should be it. Let's take a look at the final result in presentation mode. Simply beautiful. Now, for these basic versions of the Lazy Scroll Parallax effect, we only use 2 slides that we built from scratch. But to make this more applicable for your own presentations, I'll walk you through the process of adding this effect to a set of multiple slides that is already pre-built. With this, I want to demonstrate to you how quick and simple this can be applied if you follow a clean approach. With this effect, your pre-built slides only need to fulfill 2 requirements. Number 1, the whole front content of the slide, may it be text, shapes or images, needs to be grouped together. And number 2, they need to have a movable background like an image or shape. So in this example we have these 4 beautiful slides right here. Let's apply the horizontal parallax for the first transition. We just need to do the basic steps. Copying the second slide, placing it on the right, and adjusting the position of the content. Then copying over the first slide, placing it on the left side, sending both elements to the back, and finally move the background image to the right until only half of it is visible. And then apply the morph transition, and ta-da! That's it. Right, that's how quick and easy it is. And the beauty of this is you won't mess up your slides. You can easily just turn off morph and you will not notice these adjustments at all in your presentation. Let's repeat that for the second transition. Copy over the third slide to the second, and now you will notice for all slides that are in the middle, in our case that's the second and the third slide, you will have 3 slides in total on this slide page. The actual slide, the previous slide on the left, and the next slide on the right. Again, we move the content more to the right. Then copy over this slide, place it on the left side, move it to the back, and move the background slide to the right until one half is hidden. Apply the morph transition, and there we have the second beautiful Lazy Scroll Parallax Transition. For the last transition, let's apply the vertical version. So we place the last slide below the third slide, and move the text group to an even lower position. And here we place the third slide right on top, send it to the back, and hide half of the background behind the final slide. One tip here, if you combine the vertical version and the horizontal version of this effect, I recommend to slightly decrease the effect duration for the vertical one because it has a smaller distance to overcome, and thus the pace will be slower at the same duration. And that's the whole process. Look at these beautiful scrolling parallax effects that we implemented for these 4 pre-built slides within under 3 minutes. We are halfway through this course and you have already learned how to apply all versions of the beautiful Lazy Scroll Parallax effect to your next presentation. So it's a good time to hop over to the second effect, the Sticky Scroll Parallax, which looks like this. It's just so smooth. What an amazing transition. And of course we will learn both the vertical and horizontal version, so let's get started right away. We start by building 2 slides for the vertical sticky scroll parallax effect. So let's insert another beautiful background picture from Pexels. As this is the first slide, we can just make it fit to the slide area. Adjust the brightness. And insert some content. Let's leave the text aligned to the left this time and add a little highlighting effect to the main title. That looks really beautiful. And once you have set up your content, always group it together. For simplicity, we align this group to the middle of the slide. Perfect. For the second slide, we're going to use a different background like this nature picture, and now we have to do an extra step. To create this sticky scroll parallax effect, we want to smoothly reveal this second background, and for that we're going to use different cropped versions of this image with the image staying at the same position. For the initial setup of this slide, this means we have to ensure that this image crosses the vertical borders of the slide area. So it has to have a bigger height than the actual slide area and give us a potential area to use below. On this slide, we crop this part down here for now to make it fit to the slide area. Send it to the back and adjust the brightness of the image. And of course we need a different content here, so let's align and move that to the right. And change the text. And we also add a small button element right here just to have some additional content. Finally, we need to include this shape into the content group. So we ungroup both text elements for now, select all elements and regroup them again. And it makes sense to align this group to the middle. Okay, now both slides are prepared as we need them, and we start creating the Sticky Scroll Parallax effect. As the first step, we copy over the second slide elements to the first slide and place them right under the slide area. Now we only select this background image and align it to the center and the middle so that it has the exact same position like on the actual second slide. And now here comes the trick. We go to the Picture Format tab and activate the Crop Editing mode. And then we drag this bottom border down to include some of the additional image area that we prepared. And for the upper border, we drag it down right below the slide area. That's it. You see, we now have a different part of the second background image placed on the first slide, but the overall image is still in the same position on both slides. We just cropped out different parts. Then we copy over the first slide elements to the second slide and place it on top at first. And then we select the background image only and align it to the center and the middle. So this one also has the exact position as on the first slide. The last thing to do here is send it to the back. And you should also make sure for these two elements that they are in front on the first slide. Eventually, we can go to the second slide and activate the Morph Transition. And you see, there we have that beautiful Sticky Scroll Parallax effect, which is mainly based on revealing a new crop part of the same image on the second slide. Let's take a closer look at the result in presentation mode. And it is simply beautiful and looks so professional. Let's also take a look at the horizontal version. We insert a new beautiful image of some headphones and just make it fit the slide because this is the first slide. And we also make it darker. Then we copy over the text groups from the previous slides. Perfect. And for the second slide, let's duplicate this one so that we can reuse the text elements. Let's adjust the content. And we also want to have that button in here. In case you have already grouped your content and want to add another element like here, a quick and clean way is always to ungroup the other elements, because all of the ungrouped elements will still be selected, so just hold the Control key and also select the additional element, and then you can group all these together again. We align the whole content to the middle, and so far we have not covered the key part for this Sticky Scroll Parallax effect, which is the background image of the second slide. Let's search for a beautiful coffee image. That one looks pretty good. And this time we have to adjust the size and position of this image in a way that leaves us an overlapping area on the right side, just like this. Once it is positioned correctly, we crop it to fit the slide area. Adjust the brightness. And send it to the back. And now that both slides are set up correctly, we copy over this one to the first slide, position it on the right, align the background image to the center and the middle, and do the magic cropping trick to crop the right part outside of the slide area. Perfect. And then of course copy the first slide over to the second, place it on the left side, align the image to the center and the middle, and send it back. Finally, we need to apply the Morph Transition, and there we have that beautiful horizontal version of the Sticky Scroll Parallax effect. As a small addition, of course you can make the content of the second slide move independently from the background revealing process. For that, simply adjust the position of that content group on the first slide like this. And now it is moving at its own pace. Here is the final result of that effect in presentation mode. Just as beautiful as the vertical version. As the final part of this course, we're gonna take a look at the best approach for applying this beautiful Sticky Scroll Parallax effect to one of your slide decks with multiple slides in it. We're gonna use this sample deck of pre-built slides. Just like for the other effect, your slides need to fulfill a few simple requirements. Number 1, the whole front content of the slide needs to be grouped together. And number 2, they need to have a movable background like an image or shape, but this time only the very first slide can have whatever image you like that fits the slide area. For all other slides, you need to make sure that they have a cropped out area that overlaps the slide area either at the bottom or the vertical edges on the right or left side. But that's already it. Your slides don't need any more preparation, so let's take a look at the full process right away. Starting with the first transition, we copy over the second slide and place it right below the first slide. Then we select the image only and align it to the center and the middle. We go into the crop editing mode to adjust the crop area and select the part that is right below the actual slide. Beautiful. Then we copy over the first slide elements to the second slide, place them right above the slide area, and align the single image to the center and the middle. And send it to the back. We are now ready to apply the Morph Transition. And there we have that beautiful Sticky Scroll Parallax effect in place. Let's continue with the next transition. We copy over the third slide and insert it into the second slide and repeat the exact same steps. It's worth to mention that since this is one of the middle slides, we have 3 slides in total here, but the background of the first slide is hidden behind the actual slide. Once we have cropped out the bottom part of the third slide's background, we copy over the second slide to the third slide and place it on top of the third slide and hide the image right behind the actual slide content. And once the Morph Transition is applied, we have created that beautiful effect once again. Simply amazing. To finalize this slide deck, let's also include the thank you slide as well. We copy and place it, align the image, crop the bottom part, copy the previous slide and place it, align the image, and send it to the back. And there we go. That's the final transition for this presentation. Just in a matter of minutes, we took this slide deck to a whole other level. What a great technique! If you add that technique to your skill set, you are one step closer to be a PowerPoint professional. That's everything you have to know about the Sticky Scroll Parallax effect. And right here we are already at the end of this PowerPoint design course. I hope you enjoyed it. I appreciate any feedback and support. Let me know in the comments what you think of this technique and take a look at my other videos as well. I wish you a beautiful day and see you next time. Cheers!